Hi everybody, here it's Brian with the Senior Corps team again, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to this webinar about how to get the most out of the Senior Corps convening. We are really excited that we are less than a month away from the Senior Corps convening in July. By July 19th, we will all be either on our way home or home and trying to decompress from all of the great conversations and learning that we had over 3 days in Washington, D.C., or more properly, Arlington, Virginia. Before we get started, I want to give everyone one last chance to use the map in the middle of the screen to let us know where you're joining from. You can go ahead and use the zoom function that you see to the top right of that map to zoom in on the United States, and then grab the little purple flag that you see to the top left of the map and drag and drop that onto the map to let us know where you are joining. Looks like we got a pretty good distribution of folks so far, from Susan, it looks like, up in New England, down to Laurie and Krista in Florida, and I see Lauren in Arizona, and I see some other flags popping up as we speak. You can also use the poll that you see underneath that map to let us know what program you represent. Thanks for doing that. Looks like a pretty good distribution of programs so far, with mostly RSVP and FGP, but some SCP folks in the audience as well. Let's go ahead and jump in. We'll start off with our usual housekeeping notes. Nothing shocking here, but always good to review to make sure we're on the same page. First, all lines are on mute, and we'll keep them on mute throughout this webinar so that everybody can have a good experience and get clear audio. Second, if you want to ask a question, you can do that at any time, and you can do that using the chat box that you see over to the bottom left. In fact, let's warm up using that chat box, and if you can, let us know the name of your program and your state using that chat box. You don't actually need to let us know your name. That'll come through automatically, so you can just type in the name of your program and your state, your city and state if you'd like. Thanks, Stacy, for dropping your city in there in that chat box, and we'll see those come in to see people from all over the country. It's pretty cool to see this because all of these people, most likely, I'm guessing, are going to be here in July. So we'll get to meet Joyce in Chattanooga and Susan in Concord. And let's see, they're moving fast now, and Trista in Michigan, and Rona in Missouri. So great to see all of those come in. They're coming in fast and furious, so apologies as I'm missing people, but really great to see that diversity. So that's how we'll take questions. Feel free to ask a question at any time, although we may ask you to hold it for a little bit while we move ahead through the content. If you're having technical difficulties, that's also how you'll let us know about any technical difficulties. If you do let us know about technical difficulties, just FYI, you're going to want to keep your eyes on just below that box where you see a tab that says Everyone. And if you let us know about any technical difficulties, Amanda, our webinar facilitator, is going to send you a private message to try to get them straightened out. So if you let us know, keep your eyes below the chat box, actually, where it says Everyone. Another tab will pop up and kind of flash for you, so you can talk to Amanda, our webinar facilitator, privately to get that all sorted out. This call is being recorded, and we'll share the recording and the slides after the webinar. If you do not wish to be recorded, you can disconnect at any time. And as you may have seen either in our email or actually just in our title slide here, this webinar is being offered twice with identical content. So we'll have all of the same talking points here today as we will tomorrow at the same time. Both are at 3:30 Eastern Time. So you only need to attend one. Feel free to point your colleagues, if you have any colleagues who are coming, or your friends, to another. We'll have the same talking points, and we'll just release one recording, whichever recording comes out cleaner at the end. So you do have two opportunities to get this information. We just want to make sure people have every chance they get to get this information. So before we dive ahead and really get into the content for today, we want to get a sense of what people are most looking forward to. Are you most looking forward to hearing directly from CNCS and Senior Corps leadership, one of the unique opportunities of a national convening like this? Are you most looking forward to hearing from recognized experts on a wide variety of topics? Are you interested in connecting with your peers? I shouldn't say interested, and of course we're all interested in all of these things. We wouldn't be having a conference if it wasn't for all of these things. But we're curious what you're most excited about. What's most really driving your participation and getting you to say, man, I can't wait to head to Washington in about a month. We'll give that just a minute for the answers to come in. Okay, and let's share what we've got so far. You can continue to answer it if you haven't yet. Looks like the learning from recognized experts on a variety of topics is in the lead, but they've all got some representation. We will have lots of recognized experts in addition to peers who are experts. There's a little bit of overlap there presenting in the convening. Of course, we'll also have CNCS and Senior Corps leadership. You'll get to meet me, Brian, I've probably talked to many of you via a webinar many times, and I'm excited to get to meet you in person, as well as the Senior Corps team, Debbie Cox-Roush, our director, Erin McGrath, our deputy director, Jill Sears, our associate program director, Jan Newsom, Tamika Becton. I could go on and on and on, and probably some people you haven't met yet. You'll also get to hear from CNCS leadership. We're expecting to have our new CEO, relatively new CEO there in attendance, among others. And of course, we really are looking forward to presenting a wide variety of content. We've got 45 different workshops planned, actually 46 workshops planned on many different topics. And we'll talk about what some of those topics are and even point you to our draft agenda. And of course, through it all, we hope you'll be connecting with your peers and sharing knowledge with each other. Peer learning is an absolute priority of this presentation. And I want to thank all of you for being so enthusiastic about that already. We'll see some of the opportunities that we have. And I'm also going to thank you in advance for really embracing the opportunities that come for peer learning when we're all together like this. So what will we talk about here for the next about 50 minutes or so? We're going to review the basics. We'll talk about the dates and the times and location. Probably not new to anyone at this point, but we want to make sure everybody has a final chance to confirm their details. Then we'll look at what's new. What has been added to the website, been added to the agenda, been added to the conference since it all got posted. We want to make sure everybody's got all the information that they can. And then finally, we'll give you some tips to get ready for the convening and to really get the most out of this opportunity. So let's jump in with a quick overview of the basics. Hopefully, like I said, a lot of this won't be new to most of you. You can find out all of the information you need to know, and really all of the information we have to share, by going to the convening website. And that's what's on the screen right now, bit.ly/SCCon 2018. That is the official convening website, and we will be using it quite a bit today, actually. We'll be walking through it and spotlighting some things on it. Whenever you have a question about the convening, that is your first stop, bit.ly/SCCon 2018. That is your first stop. So what's some of the information that you'll see there? Well, the convening is from July 16th to 18th, 2018. We're going to start with a half day of content on July 16th. There are 3 pre-con sessions before that. Some of you have already registered for some of those pre-con sessions, so that's really exciting. Then we'll have a full day of content on July 17th and another half day on July 18th. On July 16th, we'll start in the afternoon and basically go through that afternoon. On July 18th, we'll start in the morning and we'll get you out of there by the afternoon. The location is the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City, Virginia, and I'll show you where that is in just a minute. And we've got 850 people attending, 850 people. We reached our max capacity very, very early on, so thank you all for your interest and your enthusiasm. If you have colleagues, or maybe even if you weren't able to attend, that's okay, because we'll be harnessing a lot of the information that we get from this convening and sharing it out with others and in other opportunities. You'd be crazy if I didn't look at every single one of our 46 workshops as a potential Tuesday talk in the future, or as a potential workshop in the future, or something that can be included in a different event in the future. In addition, we will actually be live streaming all of the plenary sessions, So look out for instructions on how to do that, which you can share with your colleagues, again, or friends, or anyone who wasn't able to attend before we reached capacity. We wish everyone could come who wanted to, but there are just limitations on size and resources. So thank you for all of you who registered for getting out in front of that. As I said, the meeting is in Crystal City, Virginia. That is where that star is that you see on the map. For those of you who've never been to the Washington area, it's really close to the city, even though it is in Virginia. It's very, very close to Washington, D.C. proper. So that's down here, just across the Potomac River. Our office is right here. And you can see you're pretty close to the National Mall, the Capitol, and all kinds of different attractions. So it's a really great spot. It is metro accessible, a short walk from a metro stop. And in addition to that, it's just a pretty cheap Uber ride if you ever want to come into the city, or taxi ride, what have you. All of those different ways of transportation work. So we're excited to be really close to where we all work every day, and we're excited to give all of you an opportunity to see our nation's capital. So that's the basics. That's when it is and what it is. Again, hopefully that's not new to anyone because we are coming up on less than a month, like I said. But we do want to make sure everybody's got the same information to start. Now we're going to look at what's new. What's been added to the event website, and what are some updates that maybe you've missed along the way. And we're going to start by really looking at the content and our agenda. As some of you may remember, we have 5 themes, and we're going to walk through each of those before we look at the agenda. The first is Unleashing Innovation. And in this theme, we're going to talk about sessions that improve attendees' awareness of and ability to implement programs that address new and emerging needs. Some examples of some sessions you'll see are ones that talk about overcoming the opioid epidemic, older Americans in disaster response and recovery, or new approaches to engaging volunteers in some traditional activities, like tutoring or independent living. We'll try to give you some new information to think about doing that in a different way. Our next theme is Capturing and Amplifying Your Story of Impact. And then we're going to really talk about communication, how to help you improve your ability to share your story with others. We'll talk about success stories, elevator pitches, social media, branding, engaging elected officials, and other topics like that. Our third theme, one of the most popular themes, I think, is Mobilizing the Power of a Generation. And that's where we're going to talk about recruiting, retaining, and energizing effective volunteers. This will include sessions that improve attendees' ability to identify, recruit, and lead volunteers who are 55 years and older. It'll talk about new strategies for recruitment, recruiting a diverse volunteer base, expanding service opportunities, or volunteer matchmaking, matching volunteers with the service opportunities that are best for them. Creative ways to engage and recognize volunteers will also be discussed. Our fourth theme is Responsible Impact. Responsible Impact. In this track, we will talk about things like compliance, managing grants, fiscal management, criminal history checks, the IPERA process. This is all about making sure we use taxpayer dollars as efficiently and effectively and compliantly as we can. Our final theme is Results for Your Community. We subtitled this Work Plans That Work, Outputs, Outcomes, and Evidence. Here, we're going to be talking about really improving our results. And possible sessions that you might see in this include using evidence to build effective work plans, data collection strategies and performance measurement, implementing evidence-based programming, and other topics like that. So those are our 5 themes, and we're going to look at the agenda. But before we do that, I'm actually curious to see which of these themes people are most excited about. So we're going to do a quick poll. Okay, so let's find out which of these themes people are most excited about. You can be excited about more than one, but we really want to know which you are most excited about. I'll give everyone a minute or two to answer that. Okay, looks like we've got a pretty good number of answers that come in, and poor responsible impact, I guess, is not generating quite as much excitement, but those are really important topics, and I'm sure they're going to get well attended. They always are. Some of you may know that I used to manage some of those sessions back in my prior position here at CNCS. As I suspected, Mobilizing the Power of Generation, how to recruit, retain, and energize effective volunteers is really popular. I think that's one that generated a lot of excitement, and I think we'll will see that actually when we look at some of the sessions on offer. And it's also really interesting to see results for your community scoring really highly. You know, that's something that we've been talking about for many years, something I think we all care deeply about, making sure that our programs really have the effect that we hope they have. All right, so let's go and look at what the agenda actually looks like. This is something that was added to the event website recently, so we're going to go ahead and go to the event website. As I do that, I see a question from Joanne. Can you send this presentation out after the webinar? Yes, we will send an email after. Actually, we'll wait until we're done both webinars with the slides as well as a link to the recording of this webinar. Let's go and take a look at our event website. Okay, once again, you can get to this by going to bit.ly/SCCon2018. SCCon 2018. I'm here on the homepage, but we're really going to walk across a lot of these different tabs, all of the ones that are relevant to our attendees, and we're going to start where I left off with the agenda. So we have our draft agenda down here, and you can see we've got all of the session names filled in. Now, we don't have descriptions up there yet, but in the next couple of weeks, we'll be posting a draft of our full convening agenda, which includes detailed session descriptions. So right now, you can just make your preliminary plans based off the titles that we've got here, and you can see what's going on at any one time. I'm going to return to this as we go throughout the webinar here today. What's going to be very important is planning ahead, because we've got a lot of things going on at any one time. 850 people is a lot of people. I don't think anybody would want to be in a room with 850 people for the entirety of the webinar. So what do? We break down into smaller sessions. Now that means you've got a lot of choices. You've got a lot of choices, and we're going to talk about some ways you can make the most of all that's going on, because obviously you can only be one place at a time. So we'll talk about how we can really get the most out of this diverse agenda and get to a place where we have no mo FOMO. That's going to be my motto, no mo FOMO. If you don't know what that means, hang on. We'll return to that a little bit later in the webinar. But in general, you can see the structure that we've got here. We've got these workshop session blocks. There are 4 workshop session blocks in all, and all have 9 or 10, mostly 9 concurrent sessions. And you can see the real variety of what's going on in a given session. From storytelling here, right? So this is that storytelling theme, down to fiscal management. This is also a little bit about compliance. And then suddenly we're talking about disaster preparedness. So within each block, you're going to have a variety of very different options to choose from, We will also have 4 plenaries over the course of the convening. We haven't posted descriptions for all of those yet, but we hope to be able to do that soon. Everyone who is registered is going to get an email before the convening comes, probably about a week before the convening. They'll let you know when all this information is up on the website. We're still putting some finishing touches on it. One last note about this agenda, it is somewhat still subject to change. At this point, we don't expect any major changes, but you may see a couple of sessions flip-flop or a couple of rooms change as we just make sure all of our presenters are okay with their plan. So that's the first place that you're going to want to go, this agenda, to get a feel for all of the great content that we're really excited to present. And one thing I want to point out about the content is that you will see as you look through this that actually most of it is not presented by CNCS staff. And I want to give a huge, huge, huge thank you to all of you out there who proposed topics. We won't spend time on it now because it really did happen earlier in the process, but some of you may remember that we actually invited the entire Senior Corps community and other outside experts to propose topics that they wanted to present, to share their own knowledge at the convening. And I'm really excited that we got a lot of that in the agenda. About half of all content actually is being presented by these outside groups. And that includes, when I say outside groups, I mean outside CNCS. So that includes the Senior Corps community. They really stepped up, and I think you'll see that there's a lot of really great relevant content that will be presented by your peers. Okay, so that's the agenda. Couple other things I want to point out while we're here. The next thing is this related events tab. So these are events that are not organized by CNCS and not organized by Senior Corps, but have been organized by other groups to go along with the convening, essentially to complement that convening. So it's not ours directly. We're not in charge of this, but the National Senior Corps Association and the National Association of Foster Grandparent Program Directors have posted these opportunities, or rather I should say have created these opportunities for other attendees, and we've posted them here. Because they're not our direct events, we can't answer any questions on them, but you've got links and contact information that you can use to learn a little bit more. So if you haven't taken a look at those, please do so. And then I also want to point out this exhibit hall tab. I won't click on it because it's mostly information for exhibitors, but what we'll also have going on Tuesday, July 17th is an exhibit hall with different tables where people will be talking to you about different services they can provide or just sharing information. The kinds of exhibitors we have lined up vary from the associations that you see here, and also the National Association of RSVP Program Directors have a table, to some of our federal partners who want to share information or tools with you. They'll be presenting as well, to some companies that can create recognition materials or branded materials, to even a couple of other CNCS units will be setting up tables to share information. So when you come in and when you register at the convening, you'll get a map of the exhibit hall. The exhibit hall is open on the 17th, so you should go ahead and check that out. Who knows, maybe you'll even be able to pick up a couple free handouts as you walk through that hall. That's also something that's new that we're really excited about. The last thing that I'm going to point to here is the meeting materials tab. Now what you're going to see on that tab right now is not a whole lot because we are still working with our presenters to finalize their materials. But within the next couple of weeks, and certainly well before the convening, we expect to have all presenter slides up here for printing. Now, we're not able to print out the slides for everyone at every session, right? That's a lot of trees that we have to go through, and also it's quite expensive. So what we're going to do is we'll have them here, and if you want to bring the slides, I know some people like to do that, if you want to bring the slides, you can print them out yourselves and bring them. Of course, some presenters may choose to bring other handouts, but that's their prerogative. So we'll have them all posted here for your own use when you arrive. Okay. I'm going to go back to our deck right now, and I do know that we've gotten a couple of questions. Hopefully, I've addressed some of them. I see I've got one question to address, but as I dive in to Vicky's question, I do want to invite other questions. Now is a great time for other questions about anything that we have talked about so far. Other questions about anything that we've talked about so far. And I am going to start off with Vicky. How do you register for the pre-conference workshops? So the pre-conference workshops are actually subject matter specific. So we've got two that are for new project director orientations. When you registered, you should have had the option to register for those as well. If you missed that, go ahead and send an email to the email address that you'll see on our convening website. On the convening website, you'll see there's an email address where you can direct questions. If you want to go to one of those, go ahead and send an email to them. The other one is a listening session, with the Department of Justice. We are working on an invitation list for that for programs that we think are interested. But again, if it piques your curiosity, please go ahead and send an email to the address that you see on the convening website, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the session. And we'll also check in with the organizer of that to make sure that there's a meeting of the minds and that you're both understanding what's going to go on there. Joanne asks, will meeting materials still be posted after the convening? Yes, they will be. You'll be able to get them afterwards as well. You don't need to get them ahead of time. And Cynthia asks, do you have to register every day? No, if you're already registered, that registration is good for all 3 days. We just have the one kind of registration, the one category of registration. Any registration is good for all 3 days. If you did register, you are registered for all 3 days. Let's see, I see maybe a couple of people are typing. Let's see if we have any other questions before we step ahead a little bit. Tim asks if you have a hotel room, does that mean you are registered for the conference? No, those are separate. There were a limited number of hotel rooms available. So if you have a hotel room, all that means is that you have a hotel room. You would need to register for the convening separately. Those two processes are separate. There are plenty of people who are registered for the convening who are not staying at the convening hotel. And of course, there are plenty of people who have hotel reservations at this hotel who have not registered for the convening. Lisa asks, can you listen to this webinar again? Yes, we will share a link to a recording after the webinar. In addition, we're having the same webinar with very similar content, actually identical content, tomorrow at the same time. Okay, Suzanne says, do you have to sign up to attend the workshop sessions? Yes, we've got limited room. There are limited chairs in the actual convening space. We also have to be safe in terms of things like the fire code. So you have to register to attend the convening. If you're not sure about your registration status, go ahead and send an email to the email address again on the website. But you do have to register to attend the convening. And we are at capacity, unfortunately. Like I said, we wish everyone could attend. We had the registration open for several months, but we are now at capacity. So if you're not sure about that, go ahead and send an email to that email address to check the status of your registration. Lisa asks, how do you sign up for the webinar tomorrow? You can actually just come at 3:30 the same way you did today, just going to the same URL that got you to this webinar, or if you would like to register beforehand because you can get a calendar invitation, look for the email that actually sent you to this webinar because we advertise them at the same time. One other way you can register, lots of ways to register, you can go to the Managing Senior Corps Grants page, the Managing Senior Corps Grants page, and I will paste that link into the chat box when I have a minute. The Managing Senior Corps Grants page, again, is how you can find a link to our training calendar where you can also register. Suzanne, thanks for that clarification. I talked about registering for the workshops earlier, but she clarified that she's actually talking about registering for individual workshops. And no, Suzanne, you do not need to register for individual workshops. The one registration for the convening gets you into everything. So just one registration. We tried to keep it simple. Okay, I'm going to step ahead a little bit. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll come back to them. But let's walk forward and talk about how you can make the most out of the convening. And again, my motto for this is no mo FOMO. No mo FOMO. I'm curious, does anyone in the chat box know what I mean when I say no mo FOMO? Let's start with FOMO. What does FOMO mean? Yes, all right, Lauren's on it. No more fear of missing out. No more fear of missing out. That is right. And we want no mo FOMO. We want everyone to take advantage of everything that's on offer. Of course, I've been there too when I go to a convening and there's a lot going on and I'm looking at 2 different sessions that are going on at the same time and trying to figure out which one should I attend. And I feel like if I choose one, I'm really going to just be thinking in the back of my head about that one that I couldn't attend. And oh my God, what if that was better? What if they've got more relevant information? Unfortunately, we need to make those choices because we can't be in 2 places at once, like I said before. So how do we get over that fear? How do we get over that feeling? How do we get to a place of no mo FOMO? I've got 3 steps here, and I'm going to walk through each of them. First is prepare. And I mean, do this before you ever get there. Take a little bit of time before you leave, maybe during the drive or on the plane ride if you're coming from far away. But ideally, when you're still at your site, at your normal workstation, because then you can grab information that you need. You can ask others questions and think about what you really want to get out of this. Why are you coming? What will make this event successful for you? So think about what you want to learn, who you want to meet, and also what you have to share. And I really encourage you to set aside an hour or so, give some thought to that, and try to write out your own answers to that. It's really, really, really difficult to make the most of an event like this without a little bit of reflection and prioritization. And again, I encourage you to do it before you even leave, so that way you can say, oh, you know what would be great? Maybe I should bring a work plan, because what I really want help with is thinking through my work plan. So you can say, oh, you know, I really should bring my in-service calendar, because I want to compare my in-service calendars to others' in-service calendars. Or if you really want to share something, you say, hey, I'm really proud of this flyer. Maybe you bring a few copies of that flyer or a recognition item, right? But you can't do that if you don't think of it till you're already here. So I really encourage everyone to try to carve out some time. You're already coming here for 2 or 3 days, and that extra hour of preparation can make all the difference in making sure you really do get the most out of it. I want to focus particularly on what do you have to share. I mentioned several times that a major purpose of this event is to facilitate peer learning. And I know all of you have a lot to share. So I'm actually going to ask you to respond to a prompt right now, and I'm curious what your first reactions will be. And if someone gave you a sign that said, ask me about, what would you say? What should people ask you about? What are you an expert in? What do you want to share with others? Where can you be a resource to your colleagues throughout the Senior Corps community? And I'm going to invite you to actually go ahead and use that chat box right now. I'm curious, what do we have? Ask me about what? What can people ask you about? Okay, I see some answers coming in. Marketing, advisory councils, opioids, elderly volunteers, homebound individuals, newsletters, data collection. Apologies if I'm missing them as they're coming in pretty fast and furious now. Days of service events, recognition. So I just want to point out, we've got about 60 people on this webinar. We'll have 850 people in Washington in about a month. So take all of the answers that you're seeing here and multiply them by more than 10. And that's the collective brain power that you're going to have in that room. That's the collective brain power that you're going to have in that room. So if you see something there that you want to know about, first of all, write down that person's name so you can find them at the convening and ask them more about it. But second of all, write down even the things that you don't see there that you want to know. So when the opportunity comes, you can find the right expert. And that expert may very well be, most likely will be, one of your peers in the Senior Corps community. So just think about all of that collective knowledge and experience in one place. You really do want to make sure you can get the most out of that. So that's our first recommendation. Take some time to prepare. Our second recommendation is find a convening buddy. Like I said, you can only go to one session at a time. We will post all the materials after the fact, but I know when I look at convening materials after a big meeting like this, sometimes it's hard to tell what they're really trying to get at. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start. I don't think any of us have time to look at the slides of all of them, at least not all 46 sessions, at least not maybe in the depth that we would like to. So find a convening buddy, tag team with someone. And so that way, if you both see a couple of different sessions, you can say, all right, I'll go to this one, you go to that one, and then compare notes afterwards. That is going to double the amount of information that you can get by going to the convening. Feel free to make a group of 3 as well, right? Use your peers again to also be learners with you, and make sure you set up those times to compare notes and cross-fertilize when you go back. That'll help you identify which session materials you want to go dig up. It'll also give you some really great action steps. Maybe they'll point out someone that you can track down later in the convening and ask some questions of. Right? So find a convening buddy. Don't try to do it alone. And I'm going to say that this is particularly important for those of you who may be new to the Senior Corps community. If you're a relatively recent Senior Corps program director or coordinator, find someone there to talk things through. Because even if you go to the same session, maybe you can debrief with them after the fact and say, okay, here's what I got out of that. Well, here's what I got out of that. And here are my questions. Well, I think I have the answer to those questions. So you can really start to build those relationships that'll set you up for success long term. Finally, plan ahead and prioritize. And by that I mean, go to the convening website before you leave, maybe that last week or so before you leave, get the agenda, read the session descriptions, and make a plan of what you'll actually attend where. It doesn't have to be firm. Pick maybe at least 1 or 2 sessions in every workshop block, but make a plan. So that way you know how to find the room. You don't just wind up somewhere. You're really going places with intention. This is a big convening again, and all of our rooms are going to have capacities, right? There is just the reality that you can only safely have so many people in one room. So if you know you really, really, really want to go to a session on, I see Wanda's request about low-cost recognition. I don't think we have any events called low-cost recognition specifically, but we definitely have workshops on recognition generally. So Wanda, if you know you want to go to a session on recognition, make sure you plan to go there so that way immediately when that break happens, you can head there. Because to be honest, there will be limited space in some of these rooms. That's just the nature of a convening like this. So it's really, really to your benefit to plan ahead and map out your route and map out where you want to go. And again, I encourage you to do it before you leave because then you can talk to your colleagues, talk to your advisory council, maybe even talk to some of your volunteers and ask them what they would like you to bring back. And that will really help you demonstrate to your sponsor the value of a session like this. And of course, even after you do all of that, chances are you're still going to need to prioritize. You're still going to need to choose some things that are most important to you, some things that are must-haves, and some things that are nice-to-haves. And that's okay. There's not much to say about that other than it's just the reality of life. We have limited time, and sometimes we need to pick what's best, and that doesn't mean that anything's wrong. That doesn't mean that we're making the wrong choice. Sometimes we just got to pick a direction and go with it. So prioritize and choose the real need-to-haves, and use a buddy maybe or a colleague to help out with the nice-to-haves. So that's our advice to you to get the most out of the convening. Okay, let's see if there are, actually, before I take any questions, I'm going to invite the audience to share if any of you have any advice for your colleagues. I know we've all been to different meetings like this. What advice do you have for your colleagues to get the most out of an event like this? Just go ahead and use the chat box, offer advice to your colleagues. How would you get the most out of a 3-day event like this with 850 Senior Corps program directors? I see some people typing. All right, Cynthia says, take your notes. Wanda says, network. Laurie agrees with mapping out the sessions you want to take because then they'll be easier to find. Linda goes back to that networking piece, meeting with your peers. Yeah, really harnessing that brain power that we've got in the room. And Nancy says, get plenty of sleep. It's exhausting. I think that's a really good point. These kinds of things can be intense. So make time for yourself, make time to decompress and sleep and charge up your batteries. We'll have some long days there. Plan your path. Yep, absolutely, Sherry. Again, it's great to have 9 sessions, but I'm not going to pretend that, they'll all be in eyesight of each other, right? If we've got 9 sessions, sometimes you might need to take a little walk around the edge of the convening space to find what you need to. Okay. And I see people sharing some contact information. That's great, and that's exactly the spirit that we want to have for this convening. So that's actually all the information I had for you right now. Hopefully you found this helpful as you get ready. Let's see if there are any other questions. Lisa adds, bring plenty of business cards. I know I've forgotten to bring business cards before events like this before. So take them out now. Maybe put them in your suitcase right now. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Joanne asks, are lunches provided each day? There's actually only one lunch provided. There's one breakfast and one lunch provided, and they're both on the second day. There's more information about that on the convening website. And again, I believe that's addressed on the FAQs. Your registration includes one breakfast and one lunch. Thanks for that question, Joanne. Laurie recommends don't be afraid to stop someone you don't know and ask for directions, etc. Absolutely, Laurie. I should mention this, You're going to see members of the Senior Corps team and members of our event contracting team, a company called Guardians of Honor, all over the place. We'll have black ribbons on our name tags. So if you see a black ribbon, that's someone who definitely can help you. But I don't know about all of you. I find the Senior Corps community to all be pretty helpful. So don't be afraid to stop anybody because they might not have the answer to your question. If they're stumped, look for one of the Senior Corps team. Again, we'll be identified by our black ribbons or someone from the Guardians of Honor. Dolores asks, will we hear more about the transition and sustainability plan in addition to workshops? Yeah, it's a really good question. So there are two different ways that you can learn more about that. One is, as I think probably everybody knows, but it's worth repeating, there is a whole portion of our website just set up about the transition and sustainability plan. So that's really the primary place to get information about that. We want everybody to be able to get all of that information at the same time. So look at that portion of the web page, and I promised you guys a couple of links, so I'll actually paste that in too. And then in terms of what we will discuss at the convening, stay tuned for the draft agenda and the descriptions, and that can help you identify what will be discussed in specific sessions. I'm going to paste the link to the Managing Senior Corps Grants page, which has our training calendar in case anyone wants to go and register for the call that we're having tomorrow. Again, the content will be pretty much the same. The only difference is the questions, obviously, if anyone asks any different questions. But we'll be working with the same deck, and I'll have the same talking points. But of course, you're welcome to attend if you would like. The Managing Senior Corps Grants page, and look for the link to the training calendar. And I will also share the link there to all the information that we have about the transformation and sustainability plan, including some listening sessions actually that are happening all across the country over the next few months. Okay, Lisa asks, do we need to bring writing tablets? So we will not be having notebooks for people. So if you intend to take notes, please do bring something to take notes with, pens. Kristen asks, did we cover transportation from Reagan Airport to the hotel? We did not. However, it is quite simple. So I'm going to go back to our map. Oh, there it is. So Reagan Airport is actually right here, and the hotel is right there. So they are quite close together. You can metro there, you could take a cab, and my guess is, depending on the time, the fare would be $10 or $15. I wouldn't recommend walking, because even though they are very close together, it's not a very nice walk. But they are right next to each other, and you can get more information again on the event website. Okay, Linda asked, does hotel provide complimentary breakfast? I will just say, not that I'm aware of. It's possible that maybe if you made a particular reservation, they provide something like that. So please check with the hotel to make sure. And Laurie's pointing out there's a complimentary shuttle to Reagan at the Hyatt. Thanks very much for that, Laurie. That's good to know. Okay, and Susan chimes in as well. Great, thanks guys. Yeah, if you are planning to go, it looks like the hotel will provide complimentary shuttle. Tori asks, is it safe to walk from the Holiday Inn to the Hyatt, or would you recommend a taxi? Tori, I don't know exactly where the Holiday Inn is, but what I can say is that the area around the hotel is very safe, particularly during normal business hours. So please, as Lori recommends, the Holiday Inn can probably give you more information. Again, I don't know where that specific hotel is, but I can say the area around our hotel, around the convening, is in fact very safe. Okay, what other questions do we have? All right. I am not seeing any additional questions. Thank you all for your questions and your suggestions. And thank you most of all for coming and learning alongside all of us and sharing your knowledge too. Like I said, peer learning is an explicit emphasis here for all of us, and we're really excited about all the opportunities that will be created at the convening. We're going to go ahead and sign off and give you all 15 minutes back. You'll see a one-question satisfaction survey pop up on your screen. Please do take that. It helps us, lets us know how we're doing. And like I said, we will have an identical call tomorrow afternoon and send out the slides and recording for everyone. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and have a great day.